mean, I haven't seen every picture coming out of Aleppo, but I haven't seen, honestly, Said, I haven't seen any dancing in the streets.
Syrians celebrated the army liberates eastern Aleppo, although the U.S. State Department says that's not true, as the Western media suddenly makes claims of massacres and even genocide there.
This is not true. Most people are happy now that the situation has changed.
No one is harming us now.
However, there's confusion as witness accounts gathered by this channel on the ground in Aleppo appear to contradict claims being made by the Western media. And RT speaks exclusively to President Bashar al-Assad about the ongoing liberation of Aleppo. President-elect Donald Trump's choice of Rex Tillerson, a man with business ties to Moscow, for Secretary of State, could rock the establishment's boat in Washington. And President Putin's spokesperson says he is disappointed by the International Bobsleigh and Skeleton Federation's decision to quickly revoke Russia's right to host this winter's World Championships. In an official statement, the Federation says the decision was taken regardless of whether the accusations against Moscow are justified or not.
We are sure that this is a highly politicized decision. We have always been against mixing up sports and politics.
Just turning midday here in Moscow. Thanks for joining us on RT International. We do have this hour's top world headlines. The sound of fighting had eased in Aleppo by late Tuesday, bringing an unusually quiet night to the embattled Syrian city. RT's Lizzie Phelan, who spent months this year on the front lines in Syria, reports it was, quote, the quietest night in Aleppo that she has experienced to date. And the calm comes in the wake of numerous Syrian army victories against militants in Aleppo. And the vast majority of the city has now been liberated. Meanwhile, the evacuation of civilians from the conflict zone continues. Almost 6,000 people with 2,000 children so far have escaped the violence in the past 24 hours. But while over 100,000 civilians have safely left, so too have numerous militants. Meantime, the dangerous work has begun of removing the many booby traps left behind by extremists across the city. However, commenting on the campaign to liberate Aleppo, Russia's envoy to the UN warns the war is far from over.
To say that the Syrian conflict is close to being over would be an exaggeration. There is still a long road ahead, but we would prefer this road to follow the plan that was set out in a resolution that calls for a new constitution to be adopted for Syria.
Our Washington correspondent Guyane Chichikan went to the U.S. State Department to get reaction on the latest victory celebrations in Aleppo.
The State Department has a pretty one-dimensional view of what's happening in eastern Aleppo. Its spokesman John Kirby confirmed it today when asked if he saw reports of people cheering in eastern Aleppo as the Syrian government was retaking control of that part of the city.
You know, there are all these reports about atrocities and so on, and I'm not in any way questioning their possible credibility. But also, I saw other reports where people are jubilant, they're happy to see their army command, they're going to the western side where they can get, you know, medicine and food and so on and all these things. So it is not all just one dimension, kind of. Would you agree with that?
No, I don't, Said. I mean, I haven't seen every picture coming out of Aleppo, but I haven't seen, honestly, Said, I haven't seen any dancing in the streets.
Many people who are coming out of the war-torn eastern Aleppo are telling stories that contradict the State Department's view of the situation there. And apparently, John Kirby never heard those stories from his sources of information.
We gather the best information that we can from a variety of sources. Some of it's press reporting, no question. A lot of it comes from reputable aid agencies. That are either on the ground or have associates on the ground in Syria. And some of it comes from intelligence sources, which I'm obviously clearly not going to get into. And I don't think that it's incumbent upon me or anybody else from a podium to sit there in detail and provide a laundry list of every single individual organization that gives us information. It's a mosaic. And frankly, again, I would encourage you to go flip on CNN today and look for yourself at the imagery that's coming out of Aleppo by a reputable news organization.
We followed Mr. Kirby's advice and looked into coverage of Aleppo by respected Western media outlets, and various questions were raised, as Murad Gazdiev reports.
What's happening in Aleppo is one thing. What the media is telling you is happening is entirely another.
100,000 people are trapped in the city. We're getting reports of executions, of very grim pictures emerging from inside Aleppo.
Tens of thousands of civilians are still trapped in the ever-shrinking rebel enclave.
Complete meltdown on humanity.
Picture of just how trapped these civilians are in Aleppo. If they stay at home, they could be killed.
Tens of thousands of people remain besieged, trapped in the war zone.
And the source is, well, someone told them. That's it. Very little of what you see in the Western media about Aleppo is verified. After all, they've got no one on the ground. What they do have are exaggerated headlines.
Who's doing these killings? I can't say who's done all of them, but we understand at least one Iraqi militia is involved. We've heard of killings of civilians in this way in 4 different locations, so it may well be different forces involved.
Now, the UN is being much more careful, unlike some. Just look at this. They appear to be saying there are 100,000 civilians packed into 3 square kilometers. That would have made the part of Aleppo still held by rebels the most densely populated area on the planet. Do you buy that?
This, thus far, is still a war of media. It's a propaganda war. I mean, this is an example, and it exemplifies the level of media reporting and fake news and misinformation on Syria.
And it's not just on TV. Online, you'll find hundreds of heart-wrenching images allegedly taken in Aleppo, except many weren't. This picture, for example, was taken from a music video and sold as an image of what's happening in Aleppo. Then you have this, Assad burning children, even as he guarantees safe passage to rebels and civilians who wish to leave. It's been 4 long years for Aleppo. The shelling, shooting and killing lasted for 1,609 days. Now, it's all but over. But if you listen to the mainstream media, well, that's a bad thing. Murad Gazdiev, RT.
Time.